Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Jets Fan Cole's Twitch page, the page that has it all. Wrestling, football, video games, driving, Little League football, whatever we have it. We'll drop content daily, 7 days a week. This next episode is brought to you by Jets Fan Cole Twitch page. Enjoy. Let me know what you think. Tell your friends. I appreciate it. Thank you. How's it going?
Hey everybody, it's
Episode 6 of What Have They Done to Our Sport. It's a little bit off schedule. I'm sorry about that. I was on vacation. Booked. I wasn't passing that up, but I'm excited to be back because all I thought about all week is this podcast this week because we're picking up some steam. We got to keep it going. We got a big episode this week. If you listen to episode 5, Mike teased it really good. I was excited. I couldn't wait to hear this stuff. So how's it going, Mike? Missed you, man.
Hey, good to see you again, Cole. I'm really happy for you and your family. You got a great vacation on the West Coast. And in the meantime, the world of professional wrestling had one of the biggest weeks ever. If you look at not only, of course, the WWE, and they had NXT TakeOver, Money in the Bank, the firing of Big Cass, but other events in the world of professional wrestling were also as big. And, of course, the passing of Big Van Vader, Leon White. So, I mean, just a week of pro wrestling, all types of news. So wherever you want to start, Cole, we can start.
Let's just go ahead and start on the Big Cass thing. That was the thing that caught my attention the most because I was a huge Big Cass fan and Enzo fan when they came up, man. They made me, pop every time they came out. And to see the fact that when they came out, Carmella was the weak link. And now Carmella's a champion, and Big Cass and Enzo are out of the company. Just says a lot that the wrestling business is insane. But I was reading. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, she's worked hard too, and of course, of Big Cass getting fired, and there was all these tricklings of stories of whys and so forth. And the latest trickle, so to speak, that I got was that there might have been or there was an incident. Depends on where you get the news source, that Kaz still had feelings for her. And, the story that I read was that he grabbed her arm and that a few wrestlers had to step in and break that up. I would say that if that's true, that's not good for him. That's not a good move on his part. You can't go around grabbing women's arms in an aggressive manner at the workplace or anywhere. But once again, we do know that WWE is Spin City. WWE will spin stories and they'll leak stories sometimes, as we saw with the CM Punk case. So I'm not excusing that type of behavior. I'm just saying that, sometimes we have to remember that age-old phrase, believe half of what you read and none of what you hear. So that's just my 2 cents to start with, Cole.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it, too. It could have happened, but they do spin shit. No one will ever know the truth. But Enzo, so then after that, I don't know if Enzo did this interview before or after he got fired. But apparently Enzo and Big Cass have not spoken to each other since their feud ended. And they went from being brothers, and then now they don't speak at all because when that match, Enzo was supposed to go over on him and hit him with the chair or whatever, some shit like that was supposed to happen. Big Cass wasn't happy about it, and he walked off the match. I think he got hurt and he walked off the match. And Enzo was like, he felt disrespected by that because he said, I took all the damage. I got my ass kicked every single night with pride and happiness, and this dude got to get tagged in and fucking dominate people for 15 seconds and win the match. And he had to do it one time for me, and he walked out on me. And so he said he tried to send him a text around the holidays or something, and Big Cass never responded. And all these rumors are of, Big Cass and Enzo together on the independent scene. I would love to see it, but after hearing Enzo say that, I don't see it happening. Speaking of Enzo, that dude's a genius, man. He's a genius. He's taking this opportunity outside the WWE and killing it. I read that he's charging $7,000 for an appearance on independent scene.
Well, start saving your money, right?
Yeah, right. Seven grand. Woo!
I'd say this, Cole. You or any other independent person if you have a restaurant opening or if you have a collectibles store, and I don't know why I'm pitching for Enzo. You can hire Mike Messier for $700, but you could put together some type of event and probably make your money back off of Enzo appearing. Because you're right. I mean, the guy has a following, and that's one thing about the WWE. As much as I have complaints about it, you can't complain or you can't argue that once a talent is on their television networks, the network or USA Network or all the different promotional stuff that they do for people, they've kind of made you. They've made you a celebrity. And a guy like Enzo, who apparently his first love wasn't wrestling, but he got into wrestling because they saw his mic work, had that great ability. He can do rap. He can do public appearances. He can be. I mean, the guy is made for reality TV.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if those shows like what was that show back in like the 2000s decade where they put kind of celebrities in a house together and Peter Brady and some model and maybe Zsa Zsa and I'm trying to think of who else.
Real World or
Eric
what?
Estrada was in the show.
Big
It was
Brother.
like a celebrity reality show, the B Life or something, or the C Life or something.
I have no idea.
It was a show on MTV or VH1 where they would put celebrities who kind of passed their peak a little bit into a house together, the Surreal Life.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
So right, so I mean Enzo Amore is made, or Real One, he's made for stuff like that, stuff where he can just be himself. The Celebrity Apprentice, which of course was Trump's show, but I mean Enzo is made to be on television just as being Real One or being Enzo. I mean the guy's got the gift for gab, and he's an interesting guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He is. He's one of my favorites. Like I said, I think I said it last week. Besides CM Punk, he's the best guy that's talked on the mic in the WWE in fucking the last 10 years, probably. That dude could capture a room with one word. By spelling out soft wrong, he captured fucking millions and millions of fans. So, what else you got? Like you said, it's a big week. I can't. I mean, do you want to get into it now or do you want to wait? Because I'm tired of waiting.
Well, let's finish up with the cast thing. I would just say that one thing that will ensure a Cass and Enzo reunion is money.
Yep.
If I was one of those guys, which I'm obviously not, but if they were going to give you 7,000 or 5,000 or whatever it was, for those guys to put aside their Twitter beef with each other for 45 minutes a night and neither do it. I mean, you could book the same thing every night. You could book Enzo and Cass together on the same team, put them up against your local promotions tag team champions, and then midway through the match, one of the guys short arms the other, and then they end up with a beef with each other, and then they have to come back the next month to the small town and wrestle each other. So, I mean, that type of stuff, it's such an easy angle that you can apply that story into any, local promotion anywhere. I think the bigger question, really, Cole, is could either or both of those guys appear at the All In event? Could they appear in Japan, Impact, or Anthem Wrestling, whatever it's called now, or Ring of Honor? Are those type of promotions interesting to Kaz and Enzo, or either one of those guys interested in being on those promotions? We don't really know the answer. It does remind me of the gentleman who was in the WWE around the 2006, who had like the the sympathizer angle, and how he jobbed out to the Undertaker on a pay-per-view, and Muhammad Hassan is who I'm talking about. And I listened to a recent podcast with him, and he basically said that once he did the highest he could do in wrestling, wrestled the Undertaker and Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels on pay-per-view, he really didn't have a love for the sport to go to the independent scene or TNA wrestling at the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it really does depend on the talent as well, what they want to do with their lives.
Yes, sir. I think Enzo's gonna make it in the rap business, is what I think, just because the people he's surrounding himself with. So I don't know if he needs wrestling, but if I can get paid $7,000 to fucking show up somewhere, I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna do whatever they want. $7,000 for 45 minutes of work is a crazy amount of money. So speaking of that, so I went to Cali with some people, like I said in the open, and we got tattoos and stuff. Whatever. That's not the point. Is this girl paid $60 for for a tattoo that took 30 seconds. So think about that's $120 a minute for that guy. That's pretty much $7,000 for 45 minutes. You know, obviously not that much, but that's 30. You know what I mean? That's what I'm just trying to make that point. Like, fuck, that's crazy money, dude. $60 in 30 seconds. Fuck, I'd take 7,000 for 45. You know what I mean? 45 minutes.
And it's interesting how our society, or how things are. I mean, someone could be working at a fast food restaurant and working their ass off, and they're getting, minimum wage. And imagine them getting $60 in 30 seconds, or $7,000 to show up for a bat mitzvah or something, like Enzo can at this point, or what he's asking for.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean that's a little lesson for anyone out there. And one thing for me, Cole, is, talking about money just briefly. Sometimes for guys like myself who kind of grew up coming out of those generations of the strict, you work for the boss man writes you a check, you pay your taxes, you go home. And these days, so many people do things online, whether it's for Bitcoin or through PayPal, and there's so many different ways for currency to be exchanged internationally. And it really is a changing time, so people, can just think about that, what I'm saying, and apply that to their own lives, that, some people still are stuck in that position of thinking that they have to, work for the man, so to speak. And it's true that we all do in one form or another. But at the other time, there's a lot of ways to do entrepreneurship working that's just different now.
Yep, for sure. For sure. But I mean, like you said, money could bring them together. Money might be the only thing that can bring them together, which would be good, cool. I'd watch them on the independent scene wherever I could. I told Vince Russo he needs to holler at him, because apparently he's got his phone number. I was like, get him down to Rocky Mountain Pro. So
that would blow up for Rocky Mountain Pro. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, look, either one of those guys, if nothing else, a curiosity factor. And honestly, I mean, I thought Cass was doing pretty good myself. I mean, as a heel, he had that injury which really took him off TV for 8 or 9 months. And when he came back and focused on Daniel Bryan, I thought that was a pretty good storyline. You definitely had the giant versus the smaller guy, height-wise. But I thought those guys, believe it or not, had a certain chemistry, meaning Daniel Bryan and Cass's opponents. But we can move on because there's a lot to talk about.
Yep. So yeah, that's about that. Let me say this real quick. Like, you know what? Let's wait for the story till the end. Let's make let's build the anticipation, and then we'll go over the match, and then we'll let it out there.
Okay.
Sami Zayn is out until 2019. I heard that he tore one shoulder, and then I heard he tore both shoulders. I don't know which one's true. All I know, this is at least his second shoulder surgery since he's been in the WWE, and that's not a good thing.
It's unfortunate because Sami Zayn was kind of coming into his own as a heel, and his ability to do mic work and his attacks. I mean, look, a lot of people took issues with the sister's storyline with Bobby Lashley.
He didn't write that.
Well, I mean, I think it was a deal where some of this stuff was pretty silly and pretty out there. If any of it had gone somewhere, I mean, I thought they could have used like really sexy, beautiful models to play the sisters, and kind of did a thing where Sami Zayn was dating Bobby Lashley's sisters, but used like real beautiful women. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That would have been really riveting to see, like, Sami Zayn as the Mac Daddy with these sexy, gorgeous women. And what if they played it off like one of them really was Bobby Lashley's sister or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd have been awesome.
Rather than do that, they kind of took the easy route of using guys, probably local jabroni wrestlers or training camp guys or whatever, as dressed in drag. And that was kind of gimmicky and stupid and hokey. And then they did the thing with the obstacle course. And, it's just a thing where they're really trying to push Bobby Lashley. He's just kind of like not getting over. And Sammy did his best. And now we got Sammy with what I heard was double shoulder surgeries. And I made a cryptic joke, which was, maybe they had a sale at Shoulder Surgeries R Us. Buy one shoulder surgery, get one free. And so Sammy wanted to take advantage of that while they were offering the sale.
Yeah.
From Dr. Let me write you a script. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I hope he gets. I don't ever want anybody to get injured, but I mean, I hope he gets back soon. Let's move
Yeah,
on from.
I liked him. He's starting to grow on me as a heel. So
Let's get to Money in the Bank. Let's go. Let's do a quick like 5-10 minute review on that. I mean, it was nothing great. It seems like the response is that both Money in the Bank winners are the fans are pretty pissed about who won Money in the Bank. I mean, it doesn't really matter because Money in the Bank winner, you'll never see Brock Lesnar. So I mean, you can only really cash in on one fucking champion. But they say Raw won. When's Brock Lesnar going to be there to? I mean, the Intercontinental Championship's more important than the Universal Championship right now. And it's sad. So, I mean, maybe you should cash in on the Intercontinental Champion.
well,
Go ahead.
I had a thought that wouldn't it be funny, given what you just said, Cole, that Brock Lesnar is never there? Wouldn't it be hilarious if Brock Lesnar was doing some type of press conference at some type of UFC thing or some type of ESPN award show or something? Like, I think the ESPYs are coming up this summer, as they usually are.
And hold on, I know where you're going with that. It's funny you said that because that's already been speculated that at his next UFC press conference, they're gonna mix it in with WWE.
Oh, they've been speculating. Yeah. I think that would be great. I mean, I think that would be hilarious. That if they, I mean, maybe not at UFC because then you're kind of mixed mojoing. You're mixed mojoing your UFC and your WWE. I don't know if that's good for anybody. But I would say that the ESPYs, if they can hold whatever the ESPYs is, I think it's usually in July. Wouldn't it be hilarious if Brock came out to give an award and Braun Strowman comes out, bonks him in the head with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and pins him right there on the stage at the ESPYs? That would be pretty good.
That would be cool because they always say cash in anytime, any place, and it's always in the ring in the middle of a match after the champion's got his ass whooped. So it'd be awesome if they could switch it up and do something like that. But I don't know if they're creative enough, and that takes too much thinking, Mike, for them to do that. It's not copy paste shit anymore. So
right.
I don't know. And then the James Ellsworth coming back was kind of cool. It would have been a lot better if the internet didn't ruin it. I fucking hate I love social media and all that, but I hate it for that reason because it ruins everything. Like, I would have not expected him to be there if I didn't read it online. Oh, he canceled his China date, so he's guaranteed to be at Money in the Bank. Because he wouldn't turn down that money unless he, got better money. So I hate that it was ruined, but it was still cool the way they did it, I think. And that dude, I root for that dude because he's a mad underdog who had no, everyone said you have no chance in this business. And then he made it in the WWE, now he's killing it on the independents and looks like he's back at WWE.
Well, the thing about that is, if I thought, I could be wrong, that it was Ellsworth himself or the Chinese promotion that tweeted that he couldn't do the show. So I do hear what you're saying, but in that case, you can't really blame anyone for the leak except either Ellsworth or that Chinese promotion. I do hear what you're saying. It's a mixed sort of. That's why it's so hard to pull off any surprises these days. You know what I mean? Because of the internet and social media. But yeah, here we are.
But they did.
The internet and social media. So trust me, bro. I struggle with social media. I mean, if people dig up my article, Living for Likes, a self-examination of the selfie generation by Mike Messier on MikeMessier.com, you can read that I did a lot of research about a year and a half ago into the world of Facebook, into the world of different social media platforms, and how, the monitoring, not even the monetization, but the monitoring of people through social media. I mean, when people put on stuff, very personal things, I've seen friends of mine put pictures of their unborn children in the womb, and would put that right on Facebook. And I'm thinking, please don't do that, because you're kind of exploiting your child for social media. You're putting their name, their weight, whatever, in this record on social media, especially on Facebook. And I just don't think it's a right move for people to do. And people will smile and nod and thumbs up a comment like that, but then they'll do it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they can still pull off surprises. You remember WrestleMania when the Hardy Boys came back? No one knew that was coming. Fuck, the Hardys were at a party. The Hardys were throwing a party, in the same city, but no one expected them to come when the parties went live on social media at a party of their own, holding a wrestling event, and then they show up at WrestleMania fucking 1 hour later. That was a surprise. Nobody's seen that coming. When they said the third team, I thought it was the New Day inserting themselves in the match. I didn't know it was the Hardy Boys coming out. And I popped like a fucking little kid. But it was insane. That was one of the best surprises I've seen in fucking 20 years. 10 years. But it's just like, if they want to do it, they can do it.
That's true. You mentioned the Hardy Boys, Cole. Would it be a good time to get into our, flashback match? Because I know you watched it, the TLC II at WrestleMania 2001, WrestleMania 17. Many people say that WrestleMania was the greatest WrestleMania of all time.
And this TLC match might be the greatest triple threat TLC match of all time.
Well, it was certainly a match where these guys, all 6 competitors, plus 3, because I think you had Spike Dudley, Lita, and Rhino all come in, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, sir.
But all worked their asses off. And tell us what you thought about that match.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over my notes here real quick, and then you can chime in wherever you want, and then I'll let you do the same over there. Right away, the first note I wrote. First of all, let me make this point. We started this podcast out doing review shows about Raw and SmackDown, and then we stopped real quick because there was nothing to review. But the first episode I reviewed, I had a half a page of notes for a 3-hour show. Right now, for one fucking match at WrestleMania 17, I have 1 page, 2 pages, not front and back, just front of notes for one match. Okay, and back in the day, I had a half a page for a 3-hour Raw. What does that say? But
it says it's a great match.
So JR brought up the Lita spear right away. I love that. He's like, Lita got broken half last week. And, like, they don't do that shit anymore, man. It's just so simple. I did not like Paul Heyman on commentary. I never thought he was a good commentator. But Pyro makes such a huge difference in the beginning of a match, in the beginning of whatever. Just grabs your attention and sucks you in. Again, I brought it up last week. I'm bringing the moves in the corner, splashes, leg drops to the corner, elbow dives, whatever. I don't know whatever. We don't see that anymore. You know what I mean? It's something, again, simple that is different, that is a big deal every time it happens. Edge clothesline Matt off the ladder. That was a vicious bump from Matt. The Hardy Boys were taking bumps like that back in the day. All of them taking crazy bumps like that back in the day, but the Hardy Boys are still fucking, especially Jeff's not scared today, and it's been, 15 years? It's insane, man. It's insane. The double leg drop, like the splash leg drop off the ladder the Hardy Boys did, I believe it was Christian. Devon jumped 3/4 of the ring for that off the rope. He did a splash. Yeah. Dude, that's a big dude to be jumping that far. You don't even see guys taking...
Devon had to be between 280 and 305 throughout his career. He's a big dude.
And he jumped 3/4 of the ring. Crazy. The crowd was fucking deafening from start to finish in this match. I mean, insane. And then they do chant shit, but they don't chant, oh, this is born. They're like, when Bubba hits Devon, they cheep, get the tables. But it was so fucking loud in there, you know what I mean? Because everybody was buying in. Everybody bought into what was going on. They wanted all 3 teams to, but I don't know. It just blows my mind, the difference, man. It's crazy. When Bubba powerbombed Edge through the table, nasty bump, dude. Nasty bump. The 4 tables that were set up outside, you knew something big was coming for that. I like how they built up to that and how you made you wait. And this line from JR, Papa Dudley practiced safe sex. It's too late for that. It was awesome. I'm just like, yes, because I can't remember what they said before that, and I tried to rewind it, but I didn't have very good service. It was something like Papa Dudley something. Paul Heyman brought it up, and then JR was like, yeah, Papa Dudley should have practiced safe sex, but it's too late for that. We have all these Dudleys. It was awesome. It's one of the best lines of the match, in my opinion. Christian fell to the floor from the top of the ladder in the middle of the ring. And I think he was supposed to catch himself on the ropes, like everybody else did that fell off, but he fell all the way to the outside. Nasty bump. And let me make this point. You said Rhino was in this match earlier. How much of a beast did Rhino look like back then?
He was huge, bro. I mean, he was not the tallest guy, but I mean, the guy. I mean, talk about big calves and just legs like tree trunks, and just a thick body, and just a guy who I believe he's Sabu's cousin or something.
Either way, my point to that is he looked like a straight monster back there, taking everybody out, fucking people up, and now he's eating pancakes. I don't.
Yeah, good point.
I don't.
Yeah, they.
Go ahead.
Well, they just kind of. I mean, another guy who, whether it was his own career decisions or because he kind of got that label of an invasion wrestler, rightly or wrongly, with ECW and WCW and WWE, that 2001 invasion angle. You're right. I mean, Rhino's probably a guy like a Raven who they could have done a lot of stuff with. And, you know, I've never heard, unless I missed something, a bad report about Rhino, either personally or professionally. I mean, just thinking about it in the back of my memory, I've never heard anything about him having any problems inside the ring, outside the ring with anyone, unless I'm forgetting something. So you'd think, why hasn't this guy had, you know, a little more high-profile career? TNA tried to do a few things with him. They put the NWA belt on him, I think, in 2005 for a cup of coffee. And he had some good stuff with Raven and Jeff Jarrett, kind of in a three-way feud a little bit. But, I mean, as far as the WWE goes, I know that he's back with Heath Slater now, but he's kind of in that, you know, a lovable veteran role, which means he loses a lot. You know what I mean?
And I think they just completely waste. You have another monster on the roster, you're just wasting away when you need monsters. You know what I mean? You have two big men on the roster, well, three with Roman, and now you could fuck, dude, Rhino and a Roman Reigns feud. If you did it right, that'd be a good feud. Rhino knows how to go, and Rhino could, you know, take Roman Reigns to that next level of wrestling and show him that he can do other things besides a Superman punch, a power bomb, and a fucking, you know, suplex. So I don't know. I feel like he's getting disrespected with how much of a beast he looked like back in this time.
I agree with that.
Lita killed Spike with the chair shot. Dude, I remember this now that I'm reading this note. She hit him with the chair, but she didn't have it backwards. She had it, like, you know, the wrong way. So she's fucking, bow! And dude, and his head went through it. It opened, and his head went through it. Fucking, oh my God. That was definitely not supposed to happen like that, but it did, and dude, they just didn't give a shit back then. Especially all the guys involved in this feud. They did not give a shit. And then my next note is Jeff Hardy's nuts. Dude takes the. Okay, I'll throw this out there. You guys let us know if you agree. This is how I think Jeff Hardy's the craziest bump taker in the history of professional wrestling.
Well, he's up there with Mick Foley. I mean, I think you could say Mick. You know, as far as WWE guys, anyway. Jeff is probably top three with Mick Foley and Shane McMahon, and you could probably take your pick amongst those three. You know,
I think, yeah, and I agree. I didn't really think about Mick Foley, but now that you say that, but I feel like overall Jeff is always in every single match he's in. Okay, not every single match, but every big match he's in, he's taking some sort of crazy bump. Mick Foley had the Hell in the Cell. He did the elbow drop outside the ring, and then he got thrown through this. But outside those Hell in the Cell matches, in my opinion, Foley didn't do any crazy bumps like Jeff does. He did the fire thing with Edge, I guess. But compared to Jeff Hardy, I just feel like as many bumps as he's taken, and the crazy bumps he's taken, which he takes another one in this match, as you know, two more in this match actually.
Right.
But just the overall number of bumps and crazy bumps he's taken, that's why I said that. But top three, I'll agree with that as well. So, and then I
wanted to say something real quick about, just because before I forget, going back to one of your earliest notes about the pyro and the music, you know, the guy that was it Jimmy Johnson? Is that his name? Jack Johnson? Something that was released from WWE, the music guy?
Mm-hmm.
He made a statement about, I guess, the guys that more or less took his job, and it might have been a gradual takeover, but I guess it's like a DJ team or a music beats team or whatever that they have for WWE now. And it's true. I mean, if you listen to, and some of the hooks, I mean, I'm not a musician, but some of the hooks or whatever for some of these talents now, like you hear Sasha Banks come out, and there's a certain hook to her music, which is pretty good. Or Alexa Bliss is pretty good music. But you compare that to kind of the ballsiness of a Stone Cold Steve Austin theme, or, you know, Do You Smell What the Rock Is Cooking? And back then, in those late 90s, early 2000s, they would take, like, for instance, The Rock or Stone Cold would have their song, but then they do different variations. Like, they might bring Run DMC in, or they might bring in Rob Zombie and kind of do like a remastering or even a different version of a guy's song for a while. There's a couple of versions of the Stone Cold Steve Austin theme. If you went heel for a while, they changed it up. And if you compare that music to the modern stuff, which it does have good hooks, I'll admit, but it does sound very syrupy, you know, corn syrup type of stuff. Today's music, that is.
Yeah, it's not.
And, you know,
Yeah, it's
and
not.
the music and the Pyro was a great team back then. I mean, they really, I mean, bro, when I would see Booker T wrestle live for WWE, his Pyro was incredible. It was always very, like, almost scary.
Yeah.
Booker T's Pyro, you know what I mean?
I don't know why they decided to get rid of it. It's one of the dumbest things I think they've done because that little touch, that little 5 to 10 seconds of pyro is what got you like, oh, okay, this dude's, let's go, this dude's serious, you know what I mean, type of thing. And that gets me to what I call what my favorite wrestling moment in my whole entire, okay, maybe not, my top 3 favorite wrestling moment in my whole entire life is when Jeff Hardy took that spear from Edge off the ladder. Because, for one, no one saw it coming. I don't care who you are, you can say, oh yeah, no one saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming, and the fact that they even thought that in their fucking head, like, ooh, let's do this, is crazy. And the way they executed it without practicing shows that they are true professionals. Edge laid Jeff Hardy down on that mat, dude, and they, you know what I mean. You can see but it still looked insane. He didn't get hurt, but I remember Edge saying on a podcast a while ago that he was slipping as he went to jump, and it wasn't timed right when he was slipping. So Jeff was still back here, and he was slipping off, and somehow Jeff swung to him just as he jumped off. And if he would have missed it by an inch, they both would have fucking broke their neck. You know what I mean? And so that to me, that's just insane. I don't know if he's just saying that to make the story better, but I don't know why you'd have to at that point in time. So to listen to him explain it like that, and then I just watched that table for 4 with them, and
Yes.
and you could tell them to have a different relationship because of that move, because of the trust it took for that to happen, and the fact that they executed it. I wrote that's the greatest sequence in wrestling history, in my opinion. Top 3, no questions asked. I don't think it'll ever be top. And the pop in that arena when that happened was got to be top 5 as well, of loudest pops in WWE history. It was just insane. And then for that not to be the way the match ends, because there's another big bump right after that. I'll get to that, but I want to get your opinion on that sequence. To me, obviously, you can tell it really, really one of my favorites. So.
Well, it's a phenomenal sequence, and I mean, bro, I mean, I'm not particularly afraid of heights, but you wouldn't catch me doing any of that stuff, you know, so... And there's even a point earlier, just a few minutes earlier, where Devon, I think, is dangling from a belt, and I think it was Christian that was dangling from a belt.
Devon,
you know, and when I say,
go ahead.
They're like literally dangling from the ceiling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Devon and Jeff were dangling together, and they talk about this too, how there was supposed to be a ladder for Devon to step on, but it wasn't there, and Jeff just told him, kept yelling, fall, 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 and Devon didn't want to fall because it was such a big bump, but he ended up having to anyways. But go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, it's crazy that those guys took those risks, and luckily all 6 of those guys are still around, as is Lita, Spike Dudley, and Rhino. I mean, I guess my insight is just thinking about how the 6 people in that match and the 3 others, how their careers all kind of developed. You can see that Edge doing that move that you spoke of so well, that spear off the ladder onto Jeff Hardy, that kind of showcased Edge. And it's interesting now that 17 years have come and gone, that you can see that because he was the guy to do that move and say not a Devon or not Christian, but Edge was the guy to do that spear. He was the one that was highlighted all those thousands of times that we've all seen that highlight. And when you kind of plant that seed in people's mind, like this guy, Edge, is this highlight guy. He's this guy, this risk taker. Even though all of the wrestlers took great risks in that match, but the one highlight that you know so well, that we've all seen so well, is Edge doing the move. That's why he kind of raised up to that next level where he was competing with the John Cena's and the Chris Jericho's and the Triple H's and the Mick Foley's at WrestleMania in Chicago. So, I mean, although Edge, you know, he might have, it's all debatable, but I mean, Edge took it to the next level. And although a lot of people will say that they like Christian better than Edge or whatever, you can't really argue that, at least as far as WWE goes, Edge did have the more high-profile career, and it probably has a lot to do with this very spot, this very one maneuver that we're talking about.
Yes, sir. Because I'm glad you brought that up because I never even thought about that. That definitely propelled him to the next level for sure. Because like I said,
Right.
that means Jeff Hardy trusted him enough to do that spot. So that shows that he's got trust with other people. Not only that, he executed it flawlessly with no prior practice, and that is the match, the sequence that took over WrestleMania 17 that everybody talks about. When you talk about WrestleMania 17, that's the match. WrestleMania 17 is the only one I can remember with the number because of that match. You know what I mean? Like, you could say WrestleMania 15, I have no idea. WrestleMania 35, whatever it is, I have no idea, except for last year's Mania, obviously. But WrestleMania 17, I remember it because of that match.
Well, that move. WrestleMania 15 was in Philadelphia. It was The Rock versus Steve Austin as the main event. And WrestleMania 35, I think, is what we have coming up next, I believe.
Yep. And then I'll get to my last two notes. Bubba and Matt go through those 4 tables I talked about earlier off a 20-foot ladder inside the ring. So you think they fell probably 25 foot through 4 ladders. I mean, just another crazy bump. Matt even said it himself on that table for 4. He said it was hard for him. It was hard for him to play that part so bad because he's not the high flyer. He's not the that's Jeff Hardy. He's not the risk taker. He's like an old school, slow, wrestler like you see when he did singles. I haven't been able to make it through the Hardy's 24 thing. I've fallen asleep the 2 times I tried to watch it, but I tried to watch it late at night after I was out all day in the sun in Cali. So I got to get that, but I got to the halfway point, and I did not realize that he had such bad substance abuse problems, Matt, that is. I knew Jeff did, but I did not know Matt had horrible substance abuse problems.
Well, it's unfortunate. A lot of these wrestlers struggle from, pain pill addictions. And, I mean, there's a wrestling movie I made called Wrestling Son with the late John Cronus from the Eliminators. And there's a point in that film, which is kind of a pseudo-documentary, and the wrestlers are talking pretty openly about pain pills, you know what I mean? Because, and it's at this point, it's not a secret. I'm not revealing anything that others haven't talked about so openly. But these guys, just the rigors of going in and out of that ring and the travel and all this stuff, it's a wonder that there haven't been more problems with pain pills. But, I mean, you got to give it up to these guys. They do live a very tough lifestyle. And especially 15 or 20 years ago when the ante was raised for these extreme moves or these hardcore moves. Yeah. Even when ECW went out of business, some of that stuff carried over into WWE, as we saw with this TLC match. So, on a positive note, a couple of, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, Matt Hardy did a local show in Fall River, Massachusetts. He did 2 local shows for us at Top Row Promotions at the time. And, bro, for 400 people, one of the biggest pops I ever heard was 400 people for Matt Hardy. The people just loved him, and they really did. So it's a testimony to the power of WWE kind of stamping people as celebrities, and the power to Matt Hardy as well.
Yeah, Matt Hardy definitely turned his life around and made a career for himself. I mean, you've seen the Hardy compound. That's where he lives, man. That's their property. That's insane. That's an expensive piece of property. Last note, Edge and Christian win. That's it. That's all the notes I got. Again, my favorite sequence in wrestling history by far was the spear off the ladder. I mean, I'll never forget it, and I can't wait till my kids get a little bit older so I can show them. Do you have anything else to say about that match, or can we get to the?
There's an interesting spot where Edge spears Lita through a table, I believe.
Yep.
And I mean, it's just kind of funny because we know that this was 2001, and it wasn't until, I think 2005, 2006, where the rated R superstar character with Lita, and of course, it's got to be tough for these pro wrestlers when they have, dating relationships or, to kind of be on the road. And who else are you going to date? I mean, if you're a pro wrestler, who else is around? You know what I mean? So we know that the whole controversy with Matt Hardy and Lita and Edge, but it was just kind of an interesting foreshadowing to see Edge spear Lita through a table like that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's crazy. I'm glad you brought that up too. I didn't know if I was, but to see that they can be friends again after that, because Matt and Lita, they were together for like ever. You know what I mean? And then Edge and Matt and Jeff and all them guys are boys, and then Edge swoops in and steals his homie's girlfriend. I don't know if we could be boys after that, but it just shows the professionalism between them. You know what I mean? Between the four of them to be able to do that.
And I also think that, it's kind of like I said, like in that wrestling world, it is different than if you're just living in a regular life or something, because the wrestlers, they all know that they have to travel so much, and that to understand the rigors and the travel schedule, who else is going to really understand you but another wrestler, so to speak? You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that there is kind of that understanding, and to Matt Hardy's credit, he's found himself with a beautiful woman, Reby Sky, and they've had, Maxwell and the other kid, and so it seems like, Matt Hardy kind of did well, and Reby Sky's kind of interesting because every once in a while she'll tweet out some stuff with somebody.
Yeah, she actually tweeted after the WWE 24 thing on them that she was mad, and she was and then she had to alliterate because everyone was like, "Oh, what are you mad about?" You know what I mean? She was like, "I'm not mad. I just hard for me to see the love of my life back in that deep dark space where he was." You know what I mean? Doing the drinking all the time and shit like that. So, but you said it. She is hot, man. She is smoking hot, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and I'm not trying to generalize, but there is something to be said for the spicy Latinas, like when they have something to say, they'll let you know. You know what I mean?
She's not. I think that's why. Isn't that why she's never really been under contract with WWE? Because she always says something they don't like that or what or something like. I thought I heard something like that, but she's always saying whatever the fuck she wants and she don't care. Obviously, Matt don't care either. Otherwise, he would have put a stop to it.
Well, that could be he probably can't put a stop to it. What I'm saying is she keeps him in check. So I don't know. I mean, I saw Reby Sky performed at that same show that Matt did. It was kind of a package deal where they both came in, to Fall River, and this was probably 2012, 2013, and Reby had a good match. I mean, the fans didn't really know who she was, but Reby is a really good women's wrestler on her own. And I know that now she's probably concentrating on the home front with the kids and everything. But, I mean, it seems like Matt found someone. Of course, we know that Edge ended up with the female wrestler Beth Phoenix, and they seem quite happy. And
who's also one of Lita's good friends, by the way.
Right. So the only one that hasn't really settled down, so to speak, is Lita herself. So who knows what's going to happen with her and her dating lifestyles,
Yeah. Well, Lita, hit me up on Twitter. I'm right here. Okay.
Right.
All right. So, can we get to it now? Can we get to it?
Yeah. Let's talk about it, buddy.
All right. Well, first, we're gonna make you anticipate a little bit longer. What's the next series of matches you want to do, or the next classic match you want to do, so we can get these guys informed? Go ahead. You pick whatever you want.
That's a great question, man. I'm wondering, Cole. How much WCW or NWA do you have in your blood, or do you want to get an infusion, so to speak? Would you be up for watching some Starcades?
I'll watch whatever you want to watch, man. I'm down. I got the network, so whatever. Let's do it.
I'd say let's have you and the fans who are watching now check out Starcade '83. I do believe it's on the network, although it wasn't a traditional pay-per-view as we know it now. I believe Starcade '83 is on the WWE network, so it should be available for everybody. And there's also ways to find it kind of on the wrestling underground, so to speak. Yep. So, Starcade 1983, Thanksgiving night, 1983. It was from the location of Greensboro, North Carolina. And for fans that haven't really... Go ahead.
Sorry, how convenient, the home of the Hardy Boys. But go ahead.
Right. There you go. And that probably was an influence for their lives. I did want to say a shout out before we get into our big topic that we've been talking about for a week is, Vader. Big Van Vader passed away. A good friend of ours, he's a fan of yours too, Cole, Brian Danovich, who was actually a Tough Enough contestant from the 2004 era when The Miz and Ryback kind of came out of that. But Brian Danovich has been very outspoken about pro wrestling, at least what he experienced with the WWE and Tough Enough and the trainer that everybody really hates. Basically, Brian Danovich had me on his podcast as a guest, and we talked about Vader's death, like really shortly after. And it was a really great tribute because I saw Big Van Vader wrestle Sting in the Super Clash 3 strap match. I was there when Vader lost the championship to Ron Simmons in Baltimore on August 2nd, 1992. So, I mean, you're talking to a guy myself who really did experience firsthand, quite literally, the very best of Big Van Vader. His WWE stuff, he had his moments. The Gorilla Monsoon angle was really good, but there was a match that people don't really talk about. If you like Bret Hart, and you like The Undertaker, and you like Steve Austin, and you like Vader, there was a Final Four match, I think in February of '97, that a lot of people sleep on. But Cole, for bonus viewing, if you watch that match, Final Four, it's a February '97 In Your House pay-per-view. Check that match out too, because a lot of people, the term now is sleep on it, but they just don't even remember that it happened. But it was a really good match. And that was Vader probably at his WWF best, the Final Four match. And how can you go wrong when you have those four guys? Taker, Bret, Austin, and Vader in one match.
See, here's how I look at people as stars, because I didn't get to watch much Vader. I wasn't, I knew who he was. I seen a couple matches when I started watching, but I didn't get to know who he is like everybody else does. But that being said, that's how you know when someone's a star, because you don't know. I don't know who he is, but his name's still here. You hear his name all the time, even before he passed away. You know what I mean? Everybody always brought up Vader, Vader, Vader. So that's how you know he's a star. Like I'm gonna have to go back and watch a lot. Hopefully the WWE Network does like the greatest moments of his career or something like that. So I can go back and watch and get some more info on him. But like when I saw him, I remember seeing him on Monday Night Raw. I think it was like a battle royal, and he was just in there blowing everybody up. And that's the one and only time I remember seeing him perform and doing what he does. But I still hear about him so much, it just shows what kind of star he was, because there was other people back in that era that nobody even remembers, you know what I mean? But you remember Vader because he was Vader, so.
I'll give people a real quick, not even an assignment, but if they want to watch Vader's kind of best 2 or 3 matches, watch Great American Bash 1992, Vader vs. Sting out of Philadelphia for the WCW World Title. Watch watch Starrcade. Well, hold off on Starrcade '92, but watch the Vader Sting match, Great American Bash '92, and watch Vader vs. Sting Super Clash 3 just for fun. And if they want to watch WWF Vader, watch the Final Four at that pay-per-view February of '97, I believe. And I mean, you're going to see Bret Hart, Taker, and Austin anyway. And watch that match with Vader, and it's a great hell of a fucking match, I'm telling you.
Speaking of Sting, I watched something with Vader's son that said that Sting, the last 10 months to a year, was visiting Vader. They were reading Bible verses together, telling stories. Sting would call him every day and check in. And he said other wrestlers would too, but he said he made it a point to say how much of a blessing it was that's what Sting has been to that family for the last year. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad to hear that, Sting, went above and beyond the average phone call once a month and went to his house, read the Bible with him, told stories, laughed for the last year of his life, because now that's something that Sting will hold on to until he's gone and the family will hold on to forever. You know what I mean? So that was pretty cool to hear that.
Well, that's a testimony to Sting, and I know Sting's very much into the ministry, and it's very interesting, and someone, there's been articles about it, but, guys like Ted DiBiase, guys even like Jake the Snake with his struggles, but Ted DiBiase, Tully Blanchard from the Four Horsemen, Sting, Nikita Koloff especially, who I had some good Twitter back and forth with this week in a very positive way. But a lot of these guys who leave wrestling, they find themselves, in the ministry of some kind, some type of Christian ministry, or so it's just kind of an interesting thing. I really have no comment on that, just that it's an interesting thing. You know what I mean?
Yep, it is, and it's cool. It's good to see that. So, can we get to it now?
Let's get to it, bro. Let's get to it. I know that
you want me to show
in this world of wrestling, there's been some crazy situations. So, yeah, go ahead, man. Ask me what you want, and I'll just go into it because it's a long story.
You want me to show the picture now or wait?
Yeah, show the picture now because sometimes you have to have a graphic. This is an incident that will explain what we see. But show the picture first.
Yeah, the picture's up now. I'll let people look at it for a while, a couple seconds.
Okay. So people are seeing this photograph. This is a photograph, folks, that I myself took. And some people know what this is and some people don't. But this photograph, I was told, just not to show it around too much. But it's been 22 years now, so I think it's okay. But basically, what happened was, this is Eric Koulos, and it's out of respect to him, the young man. He was very young, unfortunately, in this situation. But it was a situation that was a rough one, and we can take the photo down now, whenever you're ready.
I got it on you. You're good.
Okay, so the basic story is that if people look up mass transit incident, MASS, second word is transit, TRANSIT, and then incident, or sometimes it's called the New Jack Revere incident. It took place in New Revere, Massachusetts. This was at a venue that ECW was running in Massachusetts and New England in 1995 and 96. And this match, I believe, was in November of 96, I want to say. I think it was November 11th, 96 to be exact. I could be wrong a little bit, but it was around that time. And basically this, I think, was just I think ECW had come to Revere a year earlier in 95 from what I heard. And then in October of 96, they did a show. And then this was their second show in November of 96. I think that's correct. I could be wrong. I'm going by memory. But basically, this was a Greyhound track, like where they race horses and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's gambling. It's one of these places where, basically gambling addicts go to bet on horses, and you can bet on horses from other parts of the country probably, and all that type of stuff. And it was a decent place, but we're talking about a lot of fluorescent lighting, and where they actually had the matches, I think this has never really been discussed. It was on a flat level. So you had maybe 500 or 600 or 1,000 fans packed in. We all had seats. I mean, people had seats, but all the seats, Cole, were flat. There was no raised levels of seating. You know what I mean?
Yep. So
it was kind of a shitty place to see wrestling, especially good wrestling, because the wrestlers in ECW, we're talking about the Chris Candidos, the Tommy Dreamers, the Shane Douglases, Ravens, all the top guys of that peak, like late 1996, they were all there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And one of the acts, as we all know, I mean, I hate to use that term act, but it was the gangsters, New Jack and Mustafa, the gangsters. And basically the story goes like this. This kid, Eric Koulos, and I say I use the word kid because he was either 16 or 17 when this happened. He came up to the show with a couple of midget wrestlers, Tiny the Terrible and Half Nelson, that were brothers. And the two midgets had their own kind of gimmick match that they would do on the local independent New England circuit. And what they would do is the two midget wrestlers would wrestle Eric Koulos. And they would call him either Ralph Cramden, like the Honeymooners character, or Mass Transit. And the gimmick match was the two midgets versus the one big guy. And the kid was like 400 pounds, 450 pounds, right?
Yep.
Now, when the midgets and Eric Koulos and Eric's father, I think, drove them all up to the show, they proposed their match, their gimmick match, as a thing to Paul Heyman. Paulie Dangerously, the leader of ECW. And I wasn't in the dressing room, so this is just the stories that I've heard, the people I've talked to. and so forth. But I probably know more about this than a lot of people that have opinions on it, okay? I mean, I've seen guys like Jim Cornette and even wrestlers in ECW at the time have opinions on it, but I might know more or different stuff than they know because I talk to a lot of different parties. But basically, when they proposed this match, the midgets and the kid, and I think at this point the father wasn't around because he wasn't allowed in the dressing room, from what I understand. Paul Heyman said something to the effect of, "Well, look, we don't really do gimmick matches here. This is ECW. We don't want to do a gimmick match, and we don't really know all of you guys, but we do have an opening because Devon Dudley's partner is not here tonight, so he needs a partner against the Gangsters." And apparently, depending on who you ask, the original spot was asked if the midgets themselves wanted it, like some combination of either one midget or both midgets to team with Devon against the Gangsters. So some type of weird two midgets and Devon against the Gangsters was offered, according to what I heard, and it could not be proven or true or whatever, but apparently at that point the midgets said, or Tiny the Terrible said, "Actually, I don't want to do that, but maybe Ralph wants to do it. Maybe Eric Koulos wants to do it." And so then either Heyman offered or Koulos volunteered to take that spot in the match against the Gangsters. And when he did, he more or less signed his fate, which was not a good fate to have that night. So now we go into the dressing room story. And New Jack has talked about this. I've watched his shoot interviews. I talked to the kid at the time after this happened. And so more or less the story goes that in the dressing room, and I think, Eric was either nervous or out of place. Now here's the other thing, Cole, that's important to know from the get-go. He's a 16 or 17-year-old kid, and no one's checked his driver's license for ID. No one's checked any credentials to be in this thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And people kind of lose that. They say, well, the kid lied about his age, or the kid did this. And maybe he did lie about his age. But I'm saying, why didn't they ask for a driver's license or some type of birth certificate?
Yeah, you didn't he have to sign a contract? I mean, you know what I mean? Don't you have to get someone's personal information to sign a contract? I mean, because listen, this is gonna go downhill real quick. But I'm saying, if I got with a female who told me she was 18 and she wasn't 18, my ass would go to prison. That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And so it should be the same standards everywhere. Like I said, if I fucking use that excuse to some girl lied about her age to me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to fucking prison. So.
Right, exactly. So in that same term, age of consent, was brought up in this case. So basically, Eric apparently did not show a driver's license or a birth certificate or anything, but here he is going to wrestle New Jack and Mustafa in this tag team match. Now, the other point of it was, I mean, to make a parallel, in the NFL, if a big, strong guy, say some guy from my gym or some big strong guy went to the NFL, New England Patriots or the New York Jets, and he was all dressed up and ready to play football, and he said, "I'm ready to play football, coach," and the coach said, "Well, damn it, we need you, get in there."
Yep.
But they found out, oh my God, this was a 15-year-old kid or this was a 16-year-old kid who was just a freak of nature and super big, and then he got a concussion or broke his neck and could never walk again. This would be a front page, CNN story. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, though.
Right, but because it's pro wrestling, it was kind of, marginalized as a story.
But just like everything else in pro wrestling.
Right. So then, moving forward, apparently what people say is that in the dressing room, what kind of upset people was that Eric did not have the best dressing room behavior. I think even Stevie Richards on a podcast told the story of Eric lighting up a cigarette, and Taz, who had a lot of respect in that dressing room and taught the ECW training dojo. Taz had to come over and tell Eric to put the fucking cigarette out, and basically then it comes to a conversation that Eric and New Jack had about blading, and either New Jack asked Koulos if Eric wanted to bleed, or Eric volunteered that he did want to bleed. And however it broke down, it was decided that New Jack would help Eric bleed, which is not a good decision, from Eric's point of view. And look, going back to my own, spectatorship of this, I saw New Jack, before intermission, and New Jack was really cool that night. I remember it. Like, New Jack was really cool. And the funny thing with New Jack is that he can be very warm and friendly and funny and hilarious, and he can tell a story, man. And that guy's got some insight. I mean, if you saw Beyond the Mat, you see New Jack has a really interesting personality. He's very comedic, but at the same time, he's got, 4 justifiable, homicides on his record. So, I mean, talk about a guy who's kind of got the best and worst of humanity in him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Moving forward to the match, apparently there was some dressing room stuff between Eric and New Jack about, well, if you're going to cut me, and this is Kulas, like, basically they decided between them that Eric would blow, like, he would blow out air when New Jack was cutting him in order to make the blood go faster or deeper. So that was discussed, apparently. Now, the show was going along fine, and I was in the press section, which is why I took that photograph. And the match is going along fine. I'm sorry, the show is going along fine. Then they have an intermission. We get back from intermission, and when I remember getting back to my position, New Jack's in the ring. The gangsters were already there. It wasn't a deal where they did their... I'm trying to remember if the gangsters came out to their music, or if for some reason it was a little bit different, but the midgets were in the ring, and Kulas was in the ring, and Devon was in the ring. Devon Dudley, Hall of Famer now. And Devon basically introduced Kulas as his partner. And I do believe that the midgets were in the ring kind of floating around. I could be mistaken, but I mean, there's video footage of that. People can decide if they were there or not. But Devon kind of put over Eric as his partner. The fans were booing him immediately because it was obvious that they had never seen this guy before. He's dressed as a bus driver. And then the gangsters come to the ring, and I honestly don't remember if the gangsters were there for the intro, which would have been different for them, or if the music started like the traditional gangsters music. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which was that Ice Cube song, Ice Cube and Dr. Dre. Anyway, the match begins, and bro, it was just a fucking beatdown. And so people don't have to take my word for it. They can look. I mean, this stuff has been out there. There's the mass transit incident was covered by Channel 4, and RF Video took video footage of this stuff. So this is no big secret. But if you look into it, there's a clip from that match, and I remember this vividly. Not just the cutting, but I believe New Jack took a fucking toaster oven, and he smashed Kulas basically in the face, and it connected like right in his eye area.
Oh my god.
And I'm sorry, but that's not exactly Flair Steamboat. You know what I mean? Like taking a toaster oven and smashing somebody in the face with it. I don't care who you are. That's not professional wrestling. And, people can justify anything they want about the razors, or, well, the kid didn't know how to bleed, and blah, blah, blah. But I've never seen before or since someone take a toaster oven and smash someone in the fucking face with it.
Yeah.
So that always kind of reminds, like, people didn't bring that up a lot. They just talk about the razors or all this other stuff. But a fucking toaster oven, man, what is that, like a 20-pound piece of metal with sharp, jagged edges? And
yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that before either. So.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's literally a fucking toaster oven. It's not a gimmicked toaster oven either, folks. I mean, nobody in creative or backstage gimmick the toaster oven. It's a fucking toaster oven. They smashed the kid's eye socket. So, then basically we get to where the photograph more or less was, which is the kid's been beaten up. He's been smashed up. And I think they used the crutch and probably all the other stuff. And meanwhile, Mustafa and Devon are kind of fighting through the crowd. So Devon really never came under, Devon or Mustafa. This really wasn't about them, because for most of this stuff, they were in the crowd fighting, doing their own thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is probably really good for both of those guys, especially Devon, that he wasn't dragged into this mess because it really had very little to do with him. You know, and he was kind of. It's unfortunate for Devon that he was even there, put in this horrible position. New Jack is about to cut the fucking kid, and even to this day, people don't know exactly what it was, but it looked like a carpenter's knife, like something you would literally cut carpets with, like a big jacked up knife, and maybe it was taped up or something, like a, you know. But it basically cut the kid across the fucking forehead, and it caused, I believe, 42 stitches in the head, and then the kid was a bleeding mess. And New Jack did a move. I mean, he still took the time to do a flying move off the top rope, which was like a chair shot to the head, which I believe that's what caused the blood to just emit. And the funny thing is, Cole, I never even, during this last week, I haven't even brought myself to watch the videotape of this stuff because I'm going by memory. I mean, I remember this stuff, and if my memory's been jacked up over the years a little bit or nothing, or something, I apologize. But I mean, the match ended with this flying chair shot to the head, which really busted open even further whatever cut was inflicted on Eric Koulos. On top of that, New Jack pinned him, and then when the kid's lying in the fucking middle of the ring, a bloody, gushing mess, New Jack put his foot on the kid's stomach, stepped down pretty hardly on the kid's stomach. It was almost like he was stepping down like as a lever in order to get the kid to bleed more blood from his head. And New Jack took the microphone and said, "I hope the fat fuck dies." And the fans were kind of, I don't know if it was shock or booing or whatever. I had a weird little moment, bro, where I was in this press section and I was kind of in a diet state of mind. I would bring like fucking Ziploc bags of asparagus and fucking apples with me when I was going to shows at the time, and I even had like a white towel with me because some of these ECW shows I was going to at the time, the venues would be pretty hot, and uncomfortable. So I would bring a towel with me in case I had a sweat or something. And I remember holding onto this white towel thinking I'm going to throw the fucking towel in the ring, like Rocky and fucking Rocky 4 with Drago being up Carl Weathers. So I remember having this moment of throwing him when I throw the towel in. It wouldn't have done a damn bit of good.
Is there sorry to cut you off, but I just got a question. Is there a reason that New Jack fucking beat this kid's ass so bad? Is it because the way he acted in the locker room, you think?
Well, I would okay, this is my answer, and this is me speculation. And I know that you listen to, other podcasts and some, like, for instance, I listen to Conrad Thompson a lot, and guys like Eric Bischoff or Schiavone or Bruce, they don't always want to speculate. But because here we are, and it's 22 years later, I'll go ahead and speculate. So this is Mike Messier's speculation. It's not fact, okay? Why did New Jack feel like he had to go this far? My opinion is that New Jack felt insulted that he was wrestling this kid. And I thought about this a lot. I think that New Jack felt like, I'm a professional, I do the New Jack thing, and or the gangster thing, you put me in the ring with this, guy who's not up to my level, or he's not part of the ECW tribe, so to speak, then he's going to get hurt. And I think it might have been a message that New Jack was sending either to Paul Heyman or to whoever. You're gonna put me in the ring with this guy, then this type of guy is gonna get hurt. I shouldn't be doing this type of match. And I think that's where New Jack was coming from.
Did New Jack have a career after this?
New Jack had a huge career after this. I mean, this situation put New Jack more on the map than he ever was, to be honest with you. I mean, this situation directly threatened Barely Legal pay-per-view from even happening. In fact, I think the ECW Barely Legal pay-per-view, they were trying to do it like November to Remember, or not. Maybe no, that's not true. Well, I'll take that back. They were trying to do the Barely Legal pay-per-view before April of '97, but this New Jack, revered Eric Koulos incident stopped that from happening because a lot of cable companies heard about this situation and they sure as hell didn't want to touch ECW. So this situation that I just described, it was a bigger deal than people realize, because the fate of ECW, the fate of Barely Legal pay-per-view, the fate of all those wrestlers and all that exposure, and if you logically enough say that ECW laid the foundation or opened up the mindset for the Attitude Era of WWE, which, led to their increased ratings, didn't help the WCW declining creative in ratings, and now we have this monolith of WWE based a lot on their success with the Attitude Era, which was based a lot on the success of Barely Legal, which was based a lot on happening in the first place. Credit to Paul Heyman and everybody for that. But this Eric Koulos incident, if that had kept Barely Legal off of pay-per-view, then we wouldn't be talking right now, Cole. Things might be a lot different. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I mean, put your parallel universes and your M theories and your M Life theories, which I've discussed once again on my website, MikeMessier.com, my M Life theory about, kind of a string theory of parallel universes. But if you go into that direction, you can see that the fate of wrestling could have been really threatened by the situation. So you asked me, what did I think about New Jack? I think that New Jack was being New Jack. New Jack felt that he was insulted. He felt that this kid had no right to be in his ring. He felt that he should have been wrestling, anybody but this kid. You know what I mean? And I think that one person who, obviously this thing went to court. This thing was a big deal. The kid was lucky to get out of there alive, but unfortunately, I think within 4 or 5 years, he wasn't alive. And you can't really blame the situation on the kid's death. Eric Koulos died. He's dead. But he was overweight. He never, from what I understand, he never fully recovered from this situation mentally or emotionally. His father, I believe, has since passed away. And the kid has a younger brother who hasn't been doing so well either. So I remember going to meet the family after this. I was writing a wrestling column at the time. My column was misquoted by the local news, and I called they called the TV station very angry, and they misquoted me as having blamed the kid, which I didn't. And the local TV news station, of course, baby-faced me on the phone. So I learned a hard lesson, Cole, about how the truth is... Unfortunately, sometimes the truth in journalism is subjective, and especially in pro wrestling. And that's when I hear about, Dave Meltzer or whoever else either reporting something or defending something they've reported. I kind of know more than most people do about how journalism and events and agendas can all manipulate what we see as the truth. So even going back to 2018, when we hear this stuff about Big Cass and his problems with WWE or the problems with him.
You've been setting up these fucking punchlines and swagways perfect today. I just saw an article. I remember earlier you said that Big Cass shit's probably bullshit about the Camilla thing. Well, this guy, Robbie Fox, who's got a blue check mark on Twitter, so you know he's official. Here's his tweet. I've been pretty silent about the Big Cass release from the WWE because he's a good friend of mine. And it's just an unfortunate situation all around. I felt very bad about. But this report that is because an altercation with Camilla is complete and utter bullshit.
Well, like I said, it's called Spin. There was a TV show, right, with Michael J. Fox and later Charlie Sheen called Spin City. And it really is like First Blood. Like, okay, we're going to release Big Cass, but we're going to make sure he jobs out to Daniel Bryan 2 pay-per-views in a row by tap out, which you never see big guys tap out.
Can I read the second part of that tweet? Because he takes a shot at Ryan.
Yeah, go for it.
Ryan Satin, and I love it. He says, there was never an altercation with Carmella, Vic Joseph, or the Usos, or anyone. And it fucking sucks to see Big Cass getting dragged through the mud because of a report from one of the most notorious, inaccurate journalists in modern pro wrestling history. And he had journalist quotation marks. And we all know he's talking about Ryan Satin because Ryan Satin's the one who fucking said it was a thing with Carmella. So fuck you, Ryan Satin. Once again, you're wrong and you're a piece of shit. Go ahead.
Well, wasn't he the guy that the Ultimate Warrior kind of pointed out to that TMC thing 5 or 6 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah, and
where
he's also the one who got Russo kicked off podcast one because he called his sponsors because people were calling his girlfriend and calling her names and stuff, and he felt threatened, so he called Vince Russo sponsors.
and my point is that I try to reserve judgment and try to remind myself to reserve judgment because, hey, look, I've got the instinct finger too. I got the trigger finger too. You see something online and you want to make fun of somebody or whatever, but in this situation, going back to the because this is going back to 96, 97, so long ago, but the night that this happened, I interviewed Paul Heyman after the show. Me and about 2 or 3 other reporters from just local stuff, local New England stuff. And the word that Paul Heyman used after this, and they had to get the stretcher, they had to get an ambulance, they had to cover this kid's bloody head.
So is this kid?
This was not just a.
Is this kid pretty
This
messed
is Eric
up?
Kulas.
Yeah, is he pretty messed up today?
He's dead.
Oh, I didn't know he died.
No, Eric Kulas died in like 2001 or 2002. I think 2002 to be exact.
Is that because of this though? Is that what?
No, I don't think it was because of this. I think it was. It didn't help. Let's put it that way. But I think it's just that he was probably walking around at 400, 450 pounds. He was probably severely traumatized by this situation. He never got over it. But, I mean, I would say, I'm not trying to be a ball buster on him or anything, but I think that at some point, you can't be defined by a situation. You know what I mean? And people get defined by situations all the time. I mean, people get memed against their will, and suddenly they're defined by it. So I think Eric, in this small, or in the subculture of pro wrestling, he was never going to get over that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that he never, I mean, when he left the ring on a bloody stretcher, he flicked the crowd off. I mean, he was pretty hardcore in that sense. Like, he had the idea to even raise his middle fingers and say, fuck you to the ECW crowd because they were booing or whatever, and he was trying to stay in character or whatever the fuck. So, I mean, the kid, and bro, I think that's what people lose on this, and I've seen wrestlers who are very critical of Kulas even being there, and I get it, but I mean, like I said, would you allow a 16 or 17-year-old kid to play in the National Football League?
No, sir.
Would you allow a 16 or 17-year-old kid to go to a WCW or a WWF match at the time, now WWE, and get into a match? I mean, would you have a kid wrestle Vader, in 96 in WWF or WCW? Or would you have a kid go to a show now and suddenly he's wrestling Brock Lesnar? Hey, everybody, Braun Strowman twisted his ankle, so now we got the 16-year-old kid wrestling Brock Lesnar. Vince McMahon would never do that. So when I see all this stuff for the last 22 years of Paul Heyman being a genius and everything, what I'm getting at is that in the dressing room, or not the dressing room, but in the Revere place after, Paul Heyman used the word initiated to me. I mean, he said that the kid was initiated, meaning Garrett Kulas. Initiated typically means you're brought into something, you're a part of something. And that's all the kid wanted. He just wanted a contract for ECW. He just wanted to be part of the show and wrestle for them. See, that's what I think people somehow, they think that the kid wanted something more than to be a wrestler. But he didn't. He wanted to be an ECW wrestler. So he wasn't going there looking for a lawsuit. He wasn't going there looking to bleed buckets. I mean, the picture that I showed last week of the kid, kind of, that's moments before the match started. And you can see that's the back of Devon's head, I believe. You can see that the kid wanted to be part of the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a brutal, violent lesson to everybody that, A, you need proper training. B, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but Paul Heyman really was responsible for this. And people forget that. They'll blame the kid. They'll even blame New Jack. Or they'll blame the wrestling business in some vague term. But when I see 20,000, manipulated puppets going to a WWE show and chanting along with Paul Heyman to introduce Brock Lesnar for the last 3 or 4 years, I silently laugh and cry to myself because I think these people have no clue. They think that Paul Heyman's some entertaining guy, some great guy, but he's not. What Eric Kulos's father said to me was that as the weeks unfolded, is that Paul Heyman has no conscience, meaning that he has no care for anybody else but himself. And if you take a look at the ECW wrestlers who this day say that Paul Heyman owes them money for matches they did in the dying days of ECW, what else is there to say about it? Paul Heyman's not a hero. He's not a great guy. So when people think that he's some type of innovator of extreme wrestling and blah, 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 yes, that's all true, but he's also a piece of shit, to be quite honest. And people, when they support... What's that?
That's the vibe I get. That's what I hear for everybody say. Is he's not the best guy to work for, not the nicest guy, and he still owes people money. I mean, the dude's killing it in WWE, never showing up, getting paid probably shitloads of money. Plus, he does a bunch of other shit. He's got money. If he owes fucking past performers money for what he did for his goddamn company, then he needs to pay him. Shit, there's rumors that he's been in Vince McMahon's pocket the whole time he's running ECW.
Well, he'll never pay those guys off, and he'll just, talk about a guy who drinks his own Kool-Aid. I mean, that's Paul Heyman. You know, I mean, he's a guy who drinks his own Kool-Aid, and his Kool-Aid concoction is, we are extreme, we are hardcore. Well, how hardcore is it to have a 16-year-old kid get smashed in the eyeball with a fucking toaster oven? Is that hardcore, or is that just bullshit?
That's pretty much stupid.
Right, and like I said, I finally want to talk about this, Cole, because we have this platform now, and people who are watching this, they can do what they want with it. They can chalk it up to me being a sympathizer to the kid, but I guess I am, because I talked to the kid after, and I saw the damage. I mean, I went to the kid's fucking house, and I saw the amount of intensity and distress the family was in. And, the father or the kid himself brought out the uniform that the kid wore during the match. And it was soaked with blood. I mean, it's a pretty shocking thing to see a 16-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid. I say 16 or 17 because I think shortly after this incident happened, he turned a year older. And then when the court documents came out, when it was reported, sometimes they would use his age when the incident happened, and sometimes they used the age that he was during the trial. You know what I mean?
So how did
definitely under 18 when the match happened.
How did the court proceedings check out?
Not very well for the kid, because somehow it was proven that the kid lied about his age, and the kid was caught in a lie. And I don't know if he lied about things on the stand or if he admitted to having lied about his age, but one of those two things sunk the case, more or less.
Got it.
And it was a deal, like I said, where even if he did lie about his age, like I said, a 15-year-old kid cannot play in a National Football League game or fight Mike Tyson or fight Brock Lesnar in UFC. So it's kind of one of those things where, like you said about the consensual thing with a sex type of situation, it doesn't matter, but apparently it did for this particular courtroom or this judge or this jury and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. But it's just a situation, bro, where I've seen the best of wrestling and I've seen the worst of wrestling, and this was the worst of wrestling. I mean, this situation, I would put number 3 in my lifetime, at least, things that I'm aware of, and I could be forgetting something. I put this number 3 of the all-time worst things to happen in an actual wrestling ring. And if people have that morbid curiosity, I guess I'll just say number 1, the worst thing ever happened in a pro wrestling ring since I've been a fan, without a doubt, Owen Hart's death. Number 2, Darren Drozdev's injury, which was a pure accident. And number 3 was this. And in a sense, this was, I mean, who's to say what's worse, but this was more deliberate. This could have been avoided, whereas the Droz thing was just a real fucking horrible accident.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty crazy, the fact that you can remember all this stuff for 22 years and it's still like it's something like it was yesterday. It just shows the impact it had. I feel bad for that kid. I wish he would have got, jet lag, compensated compensated for what he went through, and it sounds like it could have been avoided. And I feel like Paul Heyman should have got way more, heat for this shit. Hopefully, this podcast here on what have they done with what have they done to our sport, gets out there and the right people listen to it, and the right people start fucking bringing it up, and Fuck, Bill Cosby's going to jail for something he did 30 years ago. He has been convicted of it now, but he you know what I mean? They took his shows off TV and shit for something he got accused of. So, you never know. This kid fucking, pick up some heat, and maybe he'll have to answer. Maybe he'll
I'll put it to you this way, Cole. I don't think, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that would happen. Both the kid is dead now and his father's dead. B, my point in telling this story to document my version of it, and I was in the press section, I have the article somewhere that I wrote, about it. My simple reason to talk about this is not to put any heat on Paul Heyman. It's more so just to say to fans, when you're chanting along with, my name is Paul Heyman, and I am the advocate. The guy's a fucking cartoon, and he doesn't have a moral conscience that people would like to think that he has. I mean, and I know that a lot of ECW wrestlers and guys that I respect a lot will say that Paul Heyman did great things for their career, and that's all true. But at the same time, you take the bad with the good. And the bad was this situation, which, again, I think people put heat on either New Jack or Eric Koulos himself. But for whatever reason, they don't put the fucking heat or the blame on Paul Heyman, and I always did. Because when you were, I direct independent films, short independent films often, sometimes a feature or whatever, but the point is, if something happens on my set, it's Mike Messier's set. If something happens in the WWE, it's Vince McMahon. If something happens back then in WCW, you'd either blame Bischoff or whoever's running the show at the time. And a lot of times people say that's why WCW didn't succeed or stick around, because they had too many people to blame or too many people taking responsibility. And so that's it. I mean, look, this is a tough world in general. It's a tough world of entertainment, and WWE has that responsibility now of all these wrestlers and all these situations. But for any promotion, at this time it was ECW, they really just dropped the ball on this one, and it was so fucked up. I remember after the show, we were driving back. This was before the days of GPS and everything else, Cole. And we're having some late night meal at some, type of diner or pancake house, something like an International House of Pancakes, whatever the hell it was. It might have been a Bigford's, which is, I think they're out of business now. But we're having this late night breakfast, and I ordered fucking steak. I don't know why. And this was the night it happened. So the steak comes out, and it's like this bloody fucking steak. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm seeing this blood from this steak. After just 4 or 5 hours earlier, I saw this kid get his head sliced open. And bro, I couldn't eat that fucking steak. I'm like, I'm not eating this. You know what I mean? I can't eat this fucking thing.
No, and I didn't mean it I didn't mean it that you were doing this for that, but I'm just saying it'd be nice he'd have to answer for what the fuck he was thinking to let this happen. And same with that New Jack guy. I don't know if he's dead or not either, but
New Jack's still alive.
I feel like they should both have to answer for this, because it sounds like it, it's pretty fucked up. And like I said, the fact that you can, think about it, action for action 22 years later is pretty intense. So.
Well, I mean, it's like this, bro. I don't think those guys, at this point, you can look up plenty. I mean, New Jack's done so many shoot interviews about this situation. It's incredible. And it kind of led to, and honestly, when you were talking about the greatest WWE, or we were talking about the greatest performers in WWE as far as high-flying maneuvers, we forgot. I didn't mention New Jack, but New Jack did some hardcore shit. 5 years after this, he was doing all types of flying stuff off of balconies and stuff. And I guess my point is that New Jack kind of got into this thing where he was doing all these death-defying maneuvers, and I always thought in the back of my head, is this some type of response for some of the violence he's brought upon other wrestlers? Like, is he trying to show off that, hey, I might fuck you up, but I'm willing to fuck myself up too? And who knows, you'd have to get inside the mind of New Jack. But just as an aside, just to put a happy angle on this a little bit, just so people know that that photograph was mine. I have other ECW photos at the time I'll show right now. So just hang with me. If you can see these, Cole, I'm going to show this. You see this album or you see these photos?
Yep. Just hold it.
All right.
Steady up your hand, though.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's like Sabu. This is Tommy Rich of all people. These are just matches that I went to. This is like either Webster or this like Webster, Mass. February 14th, 1997. Devon Dudley versus Sabu. 1-on-1 match. You see that okay?
Yep.
And we just see some cool photographs, man. That's like Sabu taking on the Dudleys, and Sabu was really wearing these cool kind of felt pants, like these purple felt pants.
You can see it, yeah. Sabu, man, he's one of the greatest of all time.
Well, I mean, look. Here's Cronus, man. Fucking Cronus and Candido. See that?
Yep.
We're going to see like Perry Saturn and... So this was no joke. I mean, we see Spike Dudley. This is real stuff, man. This is real deal stuff that I went through. And people, I mean, I get this, I'll just show a couple more. I mean, talking about Sabu, right? I mean, that's Sabu. I mean, this is something I wrote at the time. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that yellow piece of paper I
Half
wrote?
of it, just go ahead and read it.
ECW is run by psychotics, but their live shows are the best in the business. So, I mean, this is Taz and Sabu. I mean, I'm sorry, Taz and Rob Van Dam. It's a really good shot of Taz clotheslining RVD.
Yeah.
This is ECW. This is not their fucking WWF bullshit.
Yeah, man, you got some good picks there, dude.
Well, bro, you know, people, like I said, that's Shane Douglas, man, the franchise. You know, people really don't know the whole Mike Messier wrestling fucking stories yet. You know, and that's why we're here.
Yep, that's why we're here on What Have They Done to Our Sport, because you're going to let the world know.
That's right. And so that's basically it. I mean, I basically wanted to tell the story because I try to be I'm obviously subjective. Everybody's subjective. And I've never sat there since and had some big, long talk with Paul Heyman or New Jack, but especially with Heyman, I just think he would shine the shit the way that he would want to shine the shit. I think New Jack, to some extent, has been pretty upfront about the story. And like I said, New Jack was just being New Jack. But it's up to a promoter, it's up to, you know, a director, or whatever you want to call it, management, to manage their fucking talents. And the same fun or the same excitement that we had with ECW as far as a violent, more intense adult storylines that wasn't fucking placating to selling a wrestling buddy doll or something like that. But that same intensity had its underside. And I'll be honest, I don't really know if there was any positive thing to come out of the New Jack Revere, Eric Kulaw situation. A lot of times people want to do that. They want to put the smiley face emoji on something. But I don't really see the smiley face emoji in this one because the kid suffered a lot. His family was under a lot of stress, emotional. It obviously wasn't. I don't know what Paul Heyman was thinking. Some people speculated that any press is good press, but I honestly didn't see that being the case. ECW was doing just fine without this situation, and it also detracted from the hard work of all the talented wrestlers. All the guys like Raven, Shane Douglas, all those guys who were busting their fucking ass in that business, this situation detracted from them.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
It sounds pretty fucking intense, man. And I like I said, I can't believe I ever heard about it till just now. So, well, last week when you told me about it, but I feel bad for that kid, man. I mean, there's no reason he should have been in that ring. And even I know that wrestlers had started in this business when I was 14, 15. There ain't no 14, 15-year-olds in WWE, WCW, TNA, New Japan, whatever, you know what I mean? So if there was, they'd be held accountable for it. So with that being said, you got anything else, or you got anything else with that, or what?
Well, no, I think that's about it. I mean, look, the kid loved wrestling, and I guess if there's some lesson out there, maybe it's not, maybe it is. And credit to the WWE for all their TV releases for the last 15 or 20 years or whatever it's been now. They always say, "Do not try this at home." And not that Eric did have some pro wrestling matches, smaller promotions and stuff, but he did have some experience. But that being said, maybe this was me just taking it too personally, but I always thought that part of that whole, situation was some type of statement from ECW or at least from New Jack or from Heyman, like a giant fuck you to New England wrestlers, like a giant fuck you to the region of New England, or a fuck you to independent people trying to think they could be ECW. I don't know. Maybe I just kind of made up that in my own fucking head because it seems so unnecessary, but I guess my point is, when I see stuff like you see GIFs and you see guys like climbing the top of some high school gym and doing a flying elbow drop, and the guy elbow drop and he misses his opponent on the table completely, and he does a fucking elbow drop to the floor of the high school gym.
Yep.
Or the one last week that JG showed me, Generating Heat, was a guy literally putting himself on fire. You see the extent that people will do in their fucked up minds to get over and for professional wrestling. And it's hard because we see stuff that we like Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the top of a fucking thing, or Edge spearing Lita, or Edge spearing Mick Foley through a table at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago on fire. But that is on a big-time stage with a lot of money involved, where they know the risks and there is some calculated risk going on. When you're talking about backyard wrestling, or you're talking about guys doing stuff that you don't need to be doing, or CCW doing tons of crazy shit, I guess my point is, everyone, you have to be your own advocate, so to speak, and take care of yourself and not feel like you've got to do every stupid fucking thing that somebody thinks you ought to do.
Yes, sir. I thank you for telling that story for the first time on a public platform. I think the viewers will like it. We've been gaining steam, man. We're slowly but surely building this thing. It's not even that slowly, because we finally got the kinks out. Episode 3? We're on episode 6. So I
think we've got some dark episodes. I think we had like the episode that we taped where like I was in the back of a gas station in fucking Massachusetts. And
yeah.
So we got some dark episodes for the real hardcore fans. But I guess I just say this to everybody. Look, first of all, I have no idea how many people are watching this, but for those that watch it, that if you enjoy this episode, the best thing you can do is help us, because it's really hard for just two guys to spread the word about anything and just say, hey, watch our show, watch our show. What really does help is if you, the viewer of what have they done to our sport, retweet this and put a little message with your retweet. Don't just retweet it, but say, hey, I just watched this show, and they got some wrestling insights and some wrestling stories that are different than any other video cast. And once again, I consider this a video cast because we have video. I mean, look, these are photographs that I took.
Hold on real quick while you're on that. I want to say this. This Scott Ward guy, hey, it's me _Scott on Twitter, tweeted this while I was on vacation. I think you saw it, but it was awesome. It made me feel cool. It said everyone should subscribe to It's My Time Now 18's YouTube channel and check out what have they done to our sport. So that's
his name is Scott. Well, thanks, Scott.
Yeah, hey, it's me _Scott. And so that was the first time anything like that's happened to me. And that's what I mean. That shows we're growing. That means we're catching people's attention to take time out of their day to make a tweet about our podcast. So that got me pumped up. I was excited for this episode today. I know we're off schedule. We'll be back on schedule Wednesday night with Starrcade 83. So I know it gives you a couple of days to watch it, but we got to get back on schedule. We got to be consistent. And that's my fault. No more vacations for me. We're just growing. Like he said, just put a tweet out there. Tell your friends about it. Hit the subscribe button. We're on YouTube. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Twitch. I'm doing a new thing. I'm kind of stealing this from Vince Russo, but I only give like the first 20, 30 minutes of the episode for free on Twitch because I want everybody to go subscribe to YouTube to watch the rest of it. It's simple. It's my time now. 18 on Twitter. Mikey, what's your Twitter?
Well, it's at Mikey Messier, at symbol Mikey with a Y, Mikey Messier. I'm on Facebook, Mikey Messier, and MikeMessier.com. For people that like the film world, distancefromavalon.com, distancefromavalon.com, distancefromavalon.com. You can enter the Mike Messier Avalonia Festival. It's a film and photography festival. So if you're a filmmaker out there, or even if you, I actually have qualifying competitions for cat and dog videos. So if you have a pet, if you're a cat owner or a dog owner, and you want to take a little mini movie of your cat or dog, enter Avalonia Festival. And all types of cool stuff on there. Vampire genre, drama, documentary. It's really a festival for short films, but I'm also doing a new category for a longer film as well. So check out Avalonia Festival on Film Freeway. It's a Film Freeway Top 100 festival reviewed by filmmakers. But MikeMessier.com. And look, guys, if you want to look at YouTube and you find Mike Messier, and you can subscribe to my stuff as well. I've got 125 pro wrestling rants. And
all 125 are good. All 125 are good.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. And even this weekend, I just did some life rants. I do life rants, and I did one on Friday night where I was basically speaking to other single people, especially single guys, saying, like, it's just a funny rant where I was basically saying you don't have to feel committed to stupid bullshit when you're a single person because you can always just get up and leave. Whereas someone who's married with kids or whatever, you're kind of stuck in lame situations. Hey, so I do movie reviews and all types of shit.
We should get into that topic soon because I'm married with kids, and so then I can give my point of view on that because you're 100% accurate, and it gets very, 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 very frustrating.
Right.
I'm going to plug a few more things real quick. First and foremost, Vince Russo and the Russo brand family. Without them, we wouldn't have this. They brought us together. Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling on Twitch. I got a Twitch page. I'm actually in contact with a few of the wrestlers to try and get some interviews lined up with those guys and kind of make this the place they go to get their voice heard, because that'll just build our following even more if we're exclusively with Rocky Mountain Pro wrestlers and getting their word out there, because that shit's growing. They air live on TV, so it'll be TV stars basically. We're also, all of our videos are getting put up on the Russo brand family on YouTube, so there's another platform. But the YouTube that I want you to come subscribe to is Cole's Sports Corner Podcast. As soon as I'm allowed to change the name of that, I will, but that's what it is now, so that's all you got to go is go there and subscribe. We're growing. I want to thank everybody for the support. Like Mike said, we're just two nobodies that are going to become somebodies in the podcasting business real soon. I want to thank Mike for letting that story out there. I was excited. I'm a little bit jet lagged, but that's okay. This is the best 2 hours I've had in a while. We're a little long today, but that's okay. We had a lot of shit to get through, and we didn't even get through all of it. But that's all right. We gave you an hour and 42 minutes of great content. Do you have anything else to say? Again, Starcade 83 for Wednesday. We'll be back on schedule on Wednesday. Twitch.
Yeah, just
go ahead.
The fans, check out Starcade 83. Check out if you want to pay respects to Vader. Check out Vader versus Sting, Great American Bash 92, Vader, Super Brawl 3 in February of 93. And also, if you're a hardcore WWF fan and you want to see the best of Vader, watch the Final Four, February 97. And real quick, because there's always something positive to say, usually, respect to that NXT TakeOver show. We didn't cover it. That's okay. A lot of people have already covered it. But yeah, those 5 matches on that show, busted their fucking ass. I did like the Alexa Bliss getting the title back. I did like Ronda Rousey's work. Wrestler of the Week, man. Fuck it, man. Why not? Do something different. I'm going to give Wrestler of the Week to Eric Kulaks, man, because, the kid, obviously his career was very short-lived, very stunted. But, I mean, to flick off the crowd after getting his head stabbed open That's hardcore, man. Whether they want to give him credit or not, I'll give him some credit because he took the time to not just get rolled out of that fucking ring, but to flick off the crowd and give him the finger. Female wrestler of the week, I'm going to give it to Ronda Rousey. I think that Ronda Rousey was very impressive. I think she's the rookie of the year by far, and she's willing to play the fucking game. She didn't have to go in there and snap Nia Jax's arm and win the title in her first title match.
Hey,
she allowed herself to get kind of chumped.
You called that for sure. By the way, you called that, and and you were just spot on with that. You said that you don't think they could have that match, or no, I said I don't think they could have Rousey in that match and not have her leave with the title. You said there's many things they could do. So once again, you heard it here from What Have They Done to Our Sports. He predicted that, the prediction master. We're running real long. I don't want this video to be too big to upload. So thank you everybody. I appreciate it. Wednesday we will be back. Mikey, again, thank you for your time. Sorry I kind of left you hanging on vacation. I tried to get it to work. The Wi-Fi wasn't good enough. I didn't want to put out any bad content for our fans. So thank you guys. We are out of here. I appreciate it. We'll see you Wednesday. I really hope you enjoyed that last episode like I did. Always good content here at Jets Fan Cult Twitch page. Get the word out there. Tell people about it. Share, like. I'm going to have more platforms. I'll keep people updated on that. Look out for the next episode presented to you by Jets Fan Cult Twitch page. Thank you. Again, I hope you enjoyed.